Welcome to the Infidel, podcast of the damned, the weekly companion show of the Infidel News. Join us as we discuss this week's religious accounts from an atheist perspective. From Timbuktu to Toledo, from Kathmandu to Canada, from Bangalore to Bangladesh. We deplore, you deride. And here are your hosts, Dave and Nicole.
Go.
Hello and welcome to show number 20 of the Infidel Podcast of the Damned. I'm your host, J. David Core, atheist, author, and absent anchor. And with me is my co-host, Nicole Samard. Hello, Nicole.
Howdy doody there.
Also joining us today is one of our anchors, the Mudbrooker. Welcome up, welcome, Muddy.
Howdy, howdy.
Today is Wednesday, March 18th, 2015, and we're going to be discussing the upcoming episodes of the Infidel News, which will run beginning Monday, March 23rd, 2015. Show notes for all of our podcasts can be found at infidelpodcast.blogspot.com. And if you're
it's not
regular,
.net?
Nope, .com.
.com.
Or .org or .gov. We normally, if you're a normal viewer of the podcast, you'll notice things are different. If you normally listen to the podcast on the just as a audio file, you're not going to notice any difference. But for those who view, we don't have any video today because, as you know, we've had some technical problems. We've been trying to keep up with them, but they keep one thing just snowballs and another thing builds up. Did you notice? Did you check out the show notes page, Nicole, to see what I did?
No, I didn't.
The 3 weeks that we were off, I kept updating with updating, letting people know we're having technical problems. And the first week, I decided to fill in, to just give the people something to watch. So I put up this video of funny animals talking kind of thing. And then the next week, I did the narwhal video. Have you seen the narwhal video?
No.
It's the Sprint commercial. It's hilarious. If you get a chance to look at it. And then the third week I did Charlie the Unicorn, the whole series. I was just like, gotta put something here. So I'm glad that we are finally going to have a show to put in there because it was getting. I didn't know what I was going to do next. I was running out of things to put in there.
Well, I'm getting frustrated, so.
Yeah, I imagine. Yeah. So, did everybody enjoy their St. Patrick's Day?
What's St. Patrick's Day?
It's the day after St. Uro's Day.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the only Saint Day, Saint's feast. It's a feast of St. Patrick is what it actually is, and it's the only feast day that anybody knows. The whole calendar is filled with them, but most people don't even know most of them. But well, a couple of years ago, St. Patrick's Day fell on I think it was on a Friday. Was it a Friday? No, when St. Patrick's Day fell on a Sunday a couple of years ago, there actually technically was no St. Patrick's Day because the church doesn't celebrate feast days when it's a Sunday.
Okay.
So everybody that was celebrating St. Patrick's Day was actually celebrating a holiday that didn't even exist that year.
Oh, well. Me, I never know when a holiday pops up until it actually pops up, and I find out in the news or on the web that, okay, yes, it's on now.
Yeah, well, I have to know because I had to get my corned beef ready.
Okay.
Which, by the way, here's another thing most people don't know, little piece of trivia. Corned beef and cabbage is not an Irish meal. It's an Irish-American meal. And the American Irish learned how to corn beef from the Jews in the boroughs in New York.
Okay. And how about the cabbage?
The cabbage that's an Irish thing, but the corned beef is not.
Actually, cabbage is a Mediterranean thing.
Yeah, but it's all over. But it's, yeah, well, a lot
it was the number one vegetable until the potato arrived.
Right. Well, the potatoes, right? Yeah, the potatoes didn't come. They come from Africa.
No, South America.
South America. Yeah. That's right. Sweet potatoes came from Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But before the potato arrived, everybody ate cabbage, at least in the Mediterranean area. And even in French, we've got a song about that. Savez-vous planter des choux? Which is, do you know how to plant cabbage? And so it dates back to way back when.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, is that why the mon petit chou is such a popular expression? Because they love their people so much that they're as vital as a cabbage.
I don't know. You have to figure out what you decide first what choux is, because a choux can be also a little pastry.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a sweet little pastry. Haven't you ever seen the little round pastries with
We call them donut
cream
holes.
inside and then chocolate on top?
No, that's an eclair.
Well, no. An eclair is not a little round thing. It's not like a ball. It's
Okay.
it's like a tube.
Uh-huh.
But
Okay.
a
Yeah,
choux is a nice little round thing. It's like a ball.
it's more like a cream puff sort of thing.
Yes, exactly.
Uh,
Yeah,
Nice.
covered in chocolate. Really good stuff.
That sounds like a round eclair to me.
Anyway, shall we go with
Or
the
as you
first
Canadians
story?
call them, long johns. What's that?
Shall we go with the first story?
Yeah, let's do the first story.
New Saudi Arabian King Salman faces some delicate decisions with respect to world diplomacy when it comes to human rights. The country has already had to deal with world outrage in the case of Raif Badawi, who received a sentence of 1,000 lashes and 10 years in prison for simply criticizing some of the country's religious leaders. That sentence is now on hold after delivery of only 50 lashes and an outcry from the non-Muslim world. As if the new king didn't have troubles enough trying to present a moderate face of his government to the world, another man, not yet named, has renounced his Muslim faith by filming himself tearing up a copy of the Quran and hitting it with a shoe, which in the Middle East is considered an extreme expression of disrespect. Strict adherents to Sharia law believe that the only correct punishment for any of these acts is death, and so has been the ruling thus far of the Saudi courts, which in Saudi law fall under jurisdiction of Sunni Muslim clergy. In other cases, such as the one involving 1,000 lashes, these kinds of harsh sentences have been quietly lessened after some time has passed. Given the nature of the evidence in this case, however, the king will have a difficult time satisfying both its clerics as well as the international community. This may serve as an important test as to how far the country can go in moderating its attitudes towards free speech.
Okay, are you there, Nicole?
Absolutely, I'm here.
All right. So, okay, so now with this story, I have not heard this story anywhere else. I mean, it's not like the Raif Badawi story got a lot of attention, and he was, I mean, it was bad. He was getting 1,000 lashes and 10 years in prison for basically insulting Islam when he really didn't do that. He basically was complaining about the clerics and not Islam itself. But this guy is facing a death sentence for atheism, and nobody is saying a word about it.
Well, it's kind of typical of the Infidel. We usually are first with this kind of news. Most people, like Boko Haram, we were at first for years, actually. It took years before everybody else picked up on it before, and we had been talking about Boko Haram for a long time.
Right. Yeah. There's a story that keeps showing up. I keep seeing this story, keeps appearing over and over again. Actually, a couple of them from Saudi Arabia, and one of them is 10 years old, and another one is 14 years old. And they're both about. One was a woman that was raped, and she was actually executed for having been raped. And then there's another story about a woman who was raped, who they ended up commuting that one. And both of them, there was documentaries made about it like 11 years ago, but they keep showing up. People are still talking about these stories, even though they're 15 years old. But this story, and it's almost as if people don't care about this story as much because he's only an atheist.
Well, yeah, to be expected too.
And at least officially, anyway, we have friendly relations with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. They're not the bad Middle Easterners like ISIS or anything like that, so they kind of get passed over a lot in the media.
Yeah, except that they're actually one of the worst offenders of human rights ever. They're worse than Iraq was. under Hussein. They're worse than Iran is now. Iran is actually more liberal than Saudi Arabia.
Well, I believe Saudi Arabia is the only place in the world where women can't drive.
Women can't drive. Yeah, it's the only place where women can't drive. And Sharia law is actually the whole judicial system. There's no appeals. The whole judicial system is Sharia law. It's all clerical. No other country has that.
Yep. Isn't that nice?
Yeah, but they're our buddies.
Yeah.
Like
ISIS is bad because they chop people's head off.
Yeah.
And Saudi Arabia is good because they chop people's head off.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, ISIS would be worse if they actually became a country. They would be worse than Saudi Arabia, but they're not a country. They're a terrorist organization. So.
Yeah.
Why? Because they chop people's heads off?
Yeah. Saudi Arabia.
I'll give Saudi Arabia a little credit. They haven't thrown a lot of people off of towers lately, so.
Not lately.
It's a nice humane beheading is all. It's not nothing too extreme.
Yeah, I remember a few years ago there was I don't know if they're still doing public beheadings or not, but they had taken all of the rugby fields over in Saudi Arabia and were using the rugby fields for beheadings.
Ugh.
So like people were gathering in like in stadiums to watch beheadings on the rugby fields.
Disgusting.
I know it's all ridiculous, but it has nothing to do with oil that we let this kind of thing happen. It has nothing to do with oil. That's not it at all.
Yeah. No.
Are you familiar with the fact? This is a historical fact too. I don't know how many people know this. Iraq, back when George Bush was president, they told our ambassador that they were going to invade Kuwait and wanted to know what we would do if they invaded Kuwait. Do you know about this?
I read about it a while ago.
Yeah, the ambassador's name was April Glaspie. So if you want to check it out, that's the name, April Glaspie. So Iraq, Saddam Hussein told April Glaspie, this is what we're going to do. So April Glaspie contacted Donald Rumsfeld, and Donald Rumsfeld said, quote, we have no, I can't remember the exact quote. It starts we have no, but it was we have no interest in your domestic affairs with Kuwait, was what they said. So Hussein took that as permission, or not permission, but as not as permission, but as if you invade Kuwait, that's up to you. That's between you. That's regional. That's not us. So as soon as they invaded Kuwait, though, Saudi Arabia contacted George Bush Sr., and said, we can't have that crazy Hussein having control of the ports. and that's why we liberated Kuwait.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I thought it was because of the babies being thrown out of the incubators in the hospitals.
Yeah, that's what they sold it on.
Wasn't Kuwait historically a part of Iraq years and years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Before World War I, I think it was, when they were divided off.
Yeah. Who was that? Chamberlain that did that? Was that who was?
I think it dates back to even further than that. At the end of First World War, because the thing is that up till then it had been part of the Turkish Empire, the Ottoman Empire, and then
it was all nomadic, and there was no lines.
Yeah,
it was nomadic. They just moved around, and this territory was whoever was living there at the time.
And the thing is, the British had spies all over the place. Actually, Lawrence of Arabia was one of those spies, and they decided among themselves how the Middle East was going to be cut up.
Right.
Which is why you have countries with mostly Sunnis and a bunch of with a minority of a different type, etc., etc. Yeah. And so that's why you have a mess. It's because it was not done logically. It was done by a bunch of spies who just wanted to, they just wanted to build weak countries that England could still control.
Right. Well, Kuwait, the whole country of Kuwait doesn't make any sense as far as borders are concerned. It's just this little, it's basically a tiny little sliver that the only reason for it to exist is for the ports.
Mm-hmm.
and for the royal family.
Yep.
It's territorially it's very small. They have no, so yeah, it's a big mess, and we have nobody to blame for it but our own governments.
Yep. Absolutely. So, shall we go on to story number 2?
Let's do her.
It's good to work for a cause with selfless intentions, but Mother Teresa's work had an ulterior motive, which was to convert the person who was being served to Christianity. This proclamation was made by Mohan Bhagwat, chief of India's National Volunteer Corps, the RSS, which espouses Hindu nationalism and is closely aligned with the ruling party known as BJP. The statement, which many Westerners would simply shrug it off as ad oculos, or obvious to anyone who sees it, was seen as so derogatory and inflammatory that the entire upper parliament adjourned as opposition leaders rose up to condemn the condemnation. One member of parliament named P. Rajiv, who belongs to the Marxist Communist Party of India, said, "First they're trying to de-iconize Mahatma Gandhi, now they're trying to de-iconize Mother Teresa." The first reference denoted comments by a lawmaker from the BJP that described a Hindu nationalist that assassinated Gandhi as a patriot. The Indian press was filled for days after with statements issued in condemnation of the observation that missionaries have a mission, some coming from the Catholic Church and others from opposition parties and their representatives.
Yeah. Now, this is just because obviously, and the reason I titled the story, what was the title on that? The
Captain
title was,
Obvious.
At long last, Captain Obvious, was because it's obvious Mother Teresa was trying to convert people to Christianity. That's what they do. That's the whole point of missionaries. I don't see why that's so. And then the Catholic Church comes in and says, "Oh no, she wasn't doing that." And defenders, even Indian defenders, are, "Oh, she wouldn't do that." Of course, that's what she was doing.
Yeah, but she's an icon. You can't speak badly of an icon.
But who even cares? Why? How's that even speaking badly?
Yeah. Yeah, and you have any idea how many times I had to say to retape that because I kept saying they de-ionize.
Yes,
de-iconized. I tried to say de-iconized. But yeah, it's a member of a missionary order is doing missionary type things. It's just insane that they get upset about that sort of thing.
I know. It was so silly. But yeah, I was actually going. My title there, at long last, Captain Obvious. I was going for the at long last, sir, have you no shame? Or the McCarthy. But yeah, it was just. I mean, who cares? Just let her be a missionary, and she's dead anyway.
Yes.
And there's far worse things you could say about Mother Teresa than that she was trying to convert people to Christianity. Far worse things.
But the thing is, you got to remember now she's become so big that even Hindus and Sikhs are taking her as one of their own. She is a great image for India, so they got to be proud of her. Nobody can bring her down.
Yeah, well, if admitting that Calcutta has a poverty problem is good for your image, I guess.
Yeah. Was she finally made a full saint, or was she still considered a step below in the process?
I think that they were fast tracking that.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure she's a saint now.
I think she's a saint.
Yeah.
Okay. I couldn't remember. Last I heard, she was one step below. What do they call that? Beatified.
Beatified. Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah, but you're supposed to have 3 miracles, and the miracles that they were using were so weak. But they're always weak anyway. But I mean, but they were just it was silly, the kind of things they were. But,
yeah, I heard 2 of them were card tricks.
Yeah. She was able to guess his card. Yeah.
So she's known as the Blessed. So.
Yeah. I don't know if that means that she's been sainted or not, though.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if you go to Google and type in canonized Mother Teresa, It'll, you'll be able, if it comes up with, it'll come, if she was, it would come up with a hit, telling you right away when she was canonized.
That's what I'm doing right now.
Okay. But yeah,
She's not a saint yet.
no, okay.
No.
The situation in India right now, though, is kind of weird because you have a lot of Muslims in India, you have a lot of Christians in India, but they're really pushing to make it a Hindu state, kind of like the way Israel was pushing for that Jewish state thing. It's almost like they're not technically trying to push it for them, but they're trying to make anything that's not Hinduistic. Because like I did a story this week that'll be on the following week's show about they outlawed abattoirs for everything except for water buffalo. You can still kill water buffalo, but you can't kill bulls or cows or bullocks, whatever a bullock is. What's a bullock anyway? That's a actress that used to be popular.
Now you want me to go looking again through Google for it?
I believe it's just a young bull.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah, if I remember rightly.
Okay, I will be the arbitrator in all this.
Because I kept seeing the word bullocks, and I thought that meant bullshit. I mean, isn't that what, like, it's in England, don't they use bullocks as a word for bullshit?
Yeah, it's a castrated male bovine animal of any age. Bullock, in North America, a young bull, an uncastrated male. All thanks to en.wikipedia.org.
Okay, North America, it's uncastrated. It'd have to be uncastrated in the Bible in the King James Version because they're always mentioning sacrificing a bullock. And in order to be sacrificed under Mosaic law, it had to be perfect and it would have had to been intact. So the usage must have changed some over the years since King James's day.
Yeah. Well, once you castrate it, its voice doesn't change. So.
And then you have a bull that sings castrati.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, terrible things. Okay, now let's see if I can go on to the third story without making any boo-boo this time.
Yeah, let's see.
The Templeton Prize is a worldwide famous award administered by the John Templeton Foundation. It's quite prestigious, and past winners have included luminaries such as Mother Teresa, Bishop Desmond Tutu, and the Dalai Lama. Each year, $1.7 million is presented to people whose work help affirm life's spiritual dimension. This year, the winner is a French-Canadian named Jean Vanier, a humanitarian who spent most of his life doing charitable work and helping people with intellectual disabilities. The 87-year-old philosopher, writer, religious, and moral leader founded 3 international organizations during his life, the most famous one being l'Ark, or the Ark, as in Noah's Ark. Monsieur Vanier's story starts towards the end of World War II when he served as a midshipman in the Canadian Navy. He resigned his commission in 1950 to become an academic in France. Then, in 1964, he discovered the difficulties people with mental disabilities faced and what their lives were like in mental institutions. He decided to do something about it and invited 2 mentally disabled men to live with him in a house that became known as l'Ark. This first home, where people with disabilities live with people who care for them, now spanned numerous countries around the world. In 1968, he created the Faith and Sharing Federation, which counts 13 communities which organize annual retreats and days of prayer. 3 years later, he increased his involvement with people with disabilities and started an organization named Faith and Light with the help of Marie-Helene Mathau. According to Wikipedia, it is an international movement of forums for people with developmental disabilities, their family, and friends, which now counts 1,800 communities in 80 countries worldwide. Monsieur Vanier comes from a very illustrious family whose members have been quite preeminent in Canadian society for at least 2 generations. His father, George, was a general and diplomat. Later in life, he became the first French-Canadian to hold the post of Governor-General. As for his mother, Pauline, she was a well-known humanitarian who also helped her son, Jean, with his ARC project until her death.
So the Templeton Prize, now a prize that can only be won by people with a religious affiliation?
I believe so.
So an atheist could never win the Templeton Prize?
Nope.
Okay,
$1.7 million. You'll never have it. No matter how good you are, David, you'll never get it.
I know. I was looking forward to it, too. I was counting on that money.
Yep.
for all my humanitarian works. Veneer, is that...
Actually, it's Vanier.
That's what I was going to ask, is it how it's pronounced in French? Because
Well, you see, I did it on purpose so I could pretend to be offended by Muddy's mispronunciation of French words. And actually, he had two words there, Jean and Vanier. He got one right, he got the other wrong. So he had a 50-50 chance of getting it right.
Yeah.
And
well, later he called him
50,
Monsieur.
50.
He called him Monsieur Veneer instead of Monsieur.
Again, 50-50. And now I can pretend to be half offended.
Yeah. Well, I don't take French pronunciation too seriously ever since your story there, Nicole, because the French have been pronouncing their own language wrong because some printer ran out of grave.
Yes, exactly.
Letters for the dictionary they were printing.
Absolutely. Yes.
Or was it the other one, Aigu?
Aigu, yeah.
Aigu. Which one of them was they ran out of? I think it was the grave.
They ran out of the grave.
Yeah. So after all the centuries of the French giving people hell over mispronouncing their sacred language, turns out they've been doing it wrong.
Well, actually, there's even another twist to the story. And E grave is pronounced E. E aigu is pronounced A. So you've got A and A. In France, they dropped the sound A. And so whether it's grave or aigu, they always pronounce it A. In Canada, we kept both. And so the French look down on us because we speak the old way and not the modern way. So.
But, well, who are the French to look down on anybody? That's the question.
Yes. But that guy, Jean Vanier, he's extremely well known in the French, in French Canada at least, and even in Catholic Canada. There are schools all over the place, all over the country, called Jean Vanier, and there are some also named after his father, Georges P. Vanier.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he did a lot of. I mean, he just from the description in the book, in the story there, he did a lot of good works. He seemed like he just deserves this, finally. But he's still
at
alive?
age 87.
Yeah, 87. Yeah. Should have happened a little bit sooner.
He'll have to work fast to spend all the prize money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because, for example, he discovered that living in an institution when you're mentally handicapped, it's not a good thing.
Right.
So, okay, it was a religious institution that he created, but at least it was a place where they lived as a family. And even the workers who are there live on the premises too with them. So it's like a giant family.
Right. Now, in the United States, there's a famous story. I can't recall all the details of it, but there's a famous story about a reporter who did a story. I think it was for Hearst about what life was like in mental institutions, and this was back in the '60s, and it caused a big change in the way that we looked at institutionalized people in this country. And I'm wondering which came first, the Canadian version or the Canadian expose of it, or the American expose of it?
Actually, I can tell you that Jean Vanier started this thing in 1963, and but it was not in Canada that he started it. It was in France.
Oh, okay.
You see, he was in the Canadian Navy during World War II, and he stayed in the Navy until 1950. And then after that, he went to universities and became an intellectual. And he worked there he stayed within the university environment for more than 10 years until finally, in '63 when he became familiarized with the plight of the mentally handicapped.
Okay. So he started his stuff. See, but I'm thinking he must have started his works before this American Story. So the American Story probably heard about what he was doing in Canada, and then they based the investigation on what he was doing, see what life was like in the American institutions, and then did that story. But that's not how we never hear that part of the story. Whenever we hear that story here in the United States, it's always just about the newspaper doing the investigation. Well, they probably got the idea to do it from him.
It's the same thing in movies. You borrow a lot of French movies from Europe and then redo them your own way. Like what was it? Yeah. What was it called?
You mean better is what you're.
Oh yeah, yeah, sure. Like what is it called? Two Men in the Cradle or something like that.
Yeah, three men and a baby.
Yeah, 3 Men and a Baby.
Which oddly enough, my wife is watching right now in the bedroom.
Oh, really?
The original, the French version is incredible. It's really funny. If you can find it subtitled, I would.
You know what? I'm going to have to call bullshit on that.
Oh yeah.
There's no such thing.
That was such a great movie. Very, very good.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
Yep.
I don't speak French, so mais un petit peu, but not well enough to watch a movie.
Yeah, but make an effort to watch the one with subtitles.
Yeah.
Subtitles don't hurt. You're a writer. You shouldn't be afraid of reading.
They don't work with comedy. They work with drama. Subtitles work with drama, but you can't watch a comedy and read subtitles.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's just like there's this comedy from Quebec. It's called Bon Cop, Bad Cop. Good cop, bad cop.
Okay.
And the thing is, like, half of it takes place in Quebec, half of it takes place in Ontario. And so it's two cops, they're perfectly bilingual, and sometimes they speak in French, sometimes they speak in English, and it's always at the right time. When it's normal for them to speak French, they speak French. When it's normal for them to speak English, they speak English. Right. And the subtitles, if you watch the French movie, whenever they speak English, you have that in French. And if you watch the English movie, you have all the English stuff. So they didn't have to change the audio at all. All right. They did is put the subtitles at the right place.
Right. Well, there's a lot of movies like where they the people speak the language that they would be speaking in real life, and then they only subtitle it. There's a couple of movies, several movies that do that. There's I think they did that in Inglourious Bastards, didn't they? The Germans all spoke German.
I think so.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I prefer it when they do that. It's better than so many movies. In so many movies, when it's like Roman times, everybody in American movies, everybody's American except for the Romans, and the Romans are all English.
Yes, they always speak with a British accent.
I've been watching the movie The Bunker on YouTube. It's about Hitler's last days in the Führer bunker, and it has Anthony Hopkins as Hitler, and he does a great job of it, but you just can't quite get past that English accent. Adolf Hitler ranting and raving, sounding like some Englishman. It doesn't quite track.
Yeah.
But at least everybody else has an English accent too. At least they're not trying a fake German accent or something like that. But yeah, it just doesn't quite track right.
Yep.
Yeah. Anthony Hopkins can do different accents though. He does a really good. He's one of the best American accents out there.
Yeah.
A lot of movies where you see English people playing American characters, they're doing this like really flat Midwestern accent, and they round their R's too much and stuff like that. You can always tell when it's a lot of times you can tell when it's an English person or an Australian trying to do an American accent because they round the R's too much.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
How about when it's a French person?
What's that?
What if it's a French person?
What if it's a French person trying to do an American accent?
Yeah.
I don't. Has that ever been done successfully?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Especially you'd have to decide which accent.
I know there's a whole bunch of different American accents, but a few of them are easier to do, you know, in general. But a lot of people, like people in foreign countries, especially like Russia and Ukraine and areas like that, they learn their English watching movies, and so they all picked up that like Nebraska accent.
Mm-hmm.
So, but how'd we get on this?
I don't know.
I don't,
Okay, on to Christian glitches.
Right.
Well, Brian, you know, I've been in this battle for a quarter of a century, and I've watched the disintegration of Christian civilization based here in America. And what we're seeing is the end stage of this process with so-called gay marriage. There is no such thing as gay marriage. God established the institution of marriage, one man and one woman. And what the Supreme Court is about to do, and make no mistake, they want to do this, is to find in our Constitution, by judicial fiat, a basis for marriage in homosexual sodomy. And this represents a crossing a line with God that hasn't occurred in the entire history of the world since Noah's flood. And this is not just the problem of sin, sexual sin that's been increasing, and that's a serious issue. But not since just before Noah's flood have human beings celebrated homosexual marriage. There have been many different cultures where homosexuality has been embraced. But according to the rabbis who wrote the Talmud, the final straw for God was when they started celebrating and engaging in homosexual and bestial marriages. The things that are identified in Scripture as the most egregious sins in the Bible, worse than murder, worse than genocide, is sexual perversion that breaks the relationship that God established for us to live by. You look at Leviticus chapter 18. God is explaining to the Hebrews why the Canaanites must be eliminated and why he will have them eliminate them from the promised land. And they're all sexual sins. It's incest, it's child sacrifice, the ancient version of abortion, and it's homosexuality and bestiality. Those four things are the reasons why God said that the land literally itself vomited out its inhabitants. And we're talking very serious consequences for violating those standards.
It's kind of common among Christians to say when the subject of homosexuality comes up, well, it's a sin, but so are a lot of other things. We always want to try to try to minimize the sin of homosexuality by drawing some kind of a comparison, putting it on the same level with other sins. But what I hear you saying is that homosexuality is not a sin like every other sin.
It's not just another sin. It's not just another sin. It's the only sin in the Bible that led to the incineration with fire and brimstone of 4 cities, Sodom and Gomorrah and 2 other cities of the plain. It's the only sin in the Bible associated with the culture of apostasy and the so-called reprobate mind. I've done a brochure titled Not Just Another Sin. It's a set of bullet points from Genesis to Revelation. Every place that the Bible addresses homosexuality, it does it in the context of a person, or either a person or society receiving serious consequences for that behavior. It's really a harbinger of the judgment of God. Homosexuality is as a celebration of homosexuality, not the individual involvement in homosexual conduct, but the celebration by the society is a harbinger of the wrath of God.
So that was Scott Lively talking to Brian Fisher and just making shit up whole cloth.
About their favorite topic.
Yeah, Scott Lively, he protests a little bit too much. It's not one of the 10 Commandments.
Nope.
No, so what he's saying it's worse than murder.
Yes.
Jesus never mentioned it either when he was here. I mean, if it was that important, you think even if God forgot the first time around when he sent his kid, he'd have had Junior mention it.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way: there are such thing as the deadly sins, right? Even in the
Yeah.
in
Well,
all the
that's
churches
Catholic.
I'm sorry.
That's Catholic. That's not biblical.
I thought that the deadly, the deadly sins are, applied to everybody.
Well, they do apply to everybody, but it's not in the Bible. It's something that Pope Gregory started.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of the 7 deadly sins. There were 7 sins, 7 deadly sins, and 7
Cardinal virtues.
7 virtues, cardinal virtues. So that's Catholic. That's not biblical. But but you're right. Even in the 7 deadly sins, homosexuality is not one of them.
But
Lust
killing is, murder is.
Yeah. Well, no, rage is, but not killing.
Not killing?
No.
Oh,
Rage
shit.
is, not
I
killing.
I didn't pay attention enough in class.
Yeah, it's well, laziness is too. So there you go. You just committed that one by not paying attention.
Those damn nuns will get you either way when you're sitting there in school.
Yeah.
Something else that isn't in the Bible, a nice little segue there, Dave,
Yeah.
is the idea that marriage is between one man and one woman. The only instructions in the Bible that tell you explicitly how to conduct a marriage are instructions for a polygamous marriage. You can't disrespect your first wife because you got 2 or 3 more. You can't marry a woman and her mother. It's entirely explaining how to carry out a polygamous marriage. There's nothing ever mentioned in the Bible that's between one man and one woman.
Right, and it's also all about property. There's a lot of stuff in there about property as far as we're in there, and rules like if your brother dies, you have to marry his wife. But even if you're already married, you still have to marry his wife. So and you're allowed to have concubines if you're so this important. You're allowed to have concubines. So there's nothing in the Bible. And it does say in Ecclesiastes that a man will leave his mother and cling to his wife, but it doesn't say then that he'll stop there.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, now that I think of it, most of the men in the Bible where it mentions they have a wife and all, usually they got a whole herd of them.
Yeah.
I think Mary and Joseph were probably about the only 2 that were, and then again, who knows, Joseph may have had other wives too.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, the only men that are explicitly stated as being married usually says they have 2, 3, 4 wives at least.
Yeah.
And some a lot more.
Yeah, and also marriage was, and a lot of times in the Bible, it's preordained by parents. It's not something that you even choose for yourself.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we're doing it wrong in this country. We've been doing it wrong. And did you hear about what happened was it Oklahoma that tried to change the law? We did a story on it, didn't we? Oklahoma changing the law so that so that churches issue marriage licenses instead of
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's one way to try to prevent homosexuals from getting married.
Yeah, but that's obviously going to fail in the courts.
Oh yeah.
It's just obviously going to. So why are they even trying? What's the point?
Yeah. Well, even outside of the courts, there'll be plenty of denominations that would allow gay marriage.
Mm-hmm.
So they wouldn't. It would be entirely pointless. You probably wouldn't be able to get married down to your local Assemblies of God church, you and your same-sex partner, but there's plenty of other religions and denominations that would be perfectly happy to marry a same-sex couple and issue them a, official church wedding license, unless, of course, they try and get the law so that only the officially recognized, state-approved churches can do that.
Which is a whole other kettle of fish they're opening up there.
Yeah.
You could. There's online churches, like that'll give you the Dudist church, which is based on the Big Lebowski. They'll give you one. They don't care.
They don't?
Nah. The The dude abides.
Ooh.
But yeah. So Scott Lively, though, I mean, why is that guy not in jail? Isn't he supposed to be like being brought up on charges for what he did in Uganda?
Yes, but the thing is, he'll never end up in jail over that one because it's not criminal court. It's
All right, it's
civil
civil.
court.
Yeah, that's true.
So he'll never end up in jail.
Yeah, but I mean, he is such a one-trick pony. He's so about tag gays. That's all he's. Yeah.
That's why I said, we had Brian Fisher and Scott Lively talking about their favorite topic.
Their favorite topic, yeah. Who's and then he kept bringing up bestiality as if that was like automatically. That's a Rick Santorum thing, where if we allow this, what next? People marrying their dogs?
Well, let's put it this way: bestiality is allowed is legal in quite a few American states. It is,
but not marriage. Because your goat can't sign the marriage license.
Let's see. Let's go ask our friend Google which states allow bestiality.
Probably the same ones that allow you to marry your cousins.
Well, yeah, the same ones
have a
who
lot of
don't want to allow same-sex marriage.
Yeah, yeah. They'll let you marry your cousin, but they won't let you marry your cousin if he's the same sex as you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's only been fairly recently in Wisconsin that there was an explicit anti-bestiality statute because there was a sudden rash of cattle banging went on a few years back.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it used to be covered under animal mistreatment.
Mm-hmm.
But there was never an explicit statute saying you can't fuck the livestock until we had to have one.
Until there was a need to have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's not the sort of thing the legislature usually puts real high on the list until it gets to be a problem.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. But that's the other thing. Like they always try to say that homosexuality is not natural, but homosexuality is natural. But then again, bestiality is also natural, because if you look at the animal kingdom, you'll see. I mean, dogs try to hump people's legs.
Yep.
So it's natural for animals will hump anything. It's not. It is natural. It's not. That doesn't necessarily make it okay, but it's.
Our friend at Wikipedia don't tell us exactly which state allow bestiality, but they do mention a few countries like Brazil and Finland.
They film so many donkey shows in Brazil.
Actually, Mexico.
Mexico
allows it. And Finland and Hungary.
Finland.
Yep.
Okay. It doesn't seem like
and the
Finlanders
Philippines
are kind of strange.
Yeah, but
you got the Philippines, and you've got also Romania and Thailand.
And Thailand. What's not allowed in Thailand? I mean, you can do anything in Thailand.
So you can feel proud of yourself in the U.S. You're in very good company.
Yeah, don't tell me there ain't no Canadians up there screwing the moose. I know that.
Not legally.
Not legally. Okay. That's because it brings a whole new meaning to clubbing a baby seal.
Exactly. Poke him in the eye or in the ear.
Yeah. if that's whatever floats your boat, Nicole.
Okay.
Alrighty. So anyway, that's all of our stuff for today, right?
Yep.
That's everything? Okay. So hopefully we'll be back next week with a video episode, but that's all for today. Please make sure that you subscribe to the Atheism TV channel. There you can watch the Infidel News for the Damned, where our talented team of writers and anchors present these and other stories not normally covered in the media. In the coming week, the Infidel will rerun today's stories and many more fascinating ones. You'll find Atheism TV at youtube.com/atheismtv. The Infidel podcast of The Damned is a Nicole SD production. Nicole and I would like to recognize and say thank you to Truth Search, who did the voiceover used in our intro and gave us permission to use music from his song Lied To as our opening theme. We'd also like to thank the Mudbrooker for participating in today's podcast. Thank you again, Muddy.
You're welcome.
Nicole's channel is Nicole SD and can be found at youtube.com/NICOLSD. I am Gamut Man on YouTube, at Gamut Man on Twitter, and my blog and information on my books, including my nonfiction title, Believe It, You Know an Atheist, as well as my mystery novels featuring the atheist detective Lupa Schwartz, can be accessed at tinyurl.com/lupalanding. While there, you can sign up to receive my newsletter. Signing up